Hello class, welcome back. Today we're going to be working on what we call volumetric drawing. So volumetric drawing is basically using a volume to put the object into in order to understand the perspective. So far we've gone through perspective, boxes, planes, and boxes from above, below your eye level, at your eye level. All of that now is going to be helpful for what we're about to do. We've done gesture drawings with objects, and now we're going to kind of put the two together. So, what's going to happen, you're going to need a measuring stick, okay, because you're going to have to measure angles of the object, and I'm going to relate things to just a simple box shape. So, the first one I'm going to do is a wooden shoe. Shoes are great to do. You guys should do as one of your drawings a shoe. So what we do is we think of this shoe primarily at the beginning the way you would as if it was in a shoebox. And then the idea of it, trying to get the angle of our lines, we then follow the angle of the box in order to get the line of the shoe, as you'll see. So what I'm going to do is take this, I'm going to take this shoe. Periodically I will be in your way. I will get out of your way, go back and forth. But I'm going to turn this shoe as if it's in space like this. So what I've got to do then is think of this as an angle, this as an angle, the front of my box at the widest point, and then this as another angle going back in space. So this would be a 2-point perspective box. So when we think of that, I'm going to start it off as a corner, as we did 2-point perspective. We're going to start off with the corner of the box, and that's going to represent this here. And then I'm going to bring back my angle, and we're going to construct the side of the box as it's going back in space. So anyways, we're going to think of it as a rectangular surface, okay? So anyways, that's representing this doing this. Now, we can take our corners and imagine our transparent box. And this is why I wanted you guys to draw boxes from all different angles with the one project we did. So we're not using vanishing points, we're just thinking of these cubes. So with that in mind, is what I'm going to do is think of the top of this shoe. So even though there's a curve there, I'm going to estimate where this might be. So I'm going to think of an angle right here. Now, all of my angles have to follow this box. So this one that I'm stroking has got to follow this angle, this angle, this angle. And this is what's nice about trying to get something in perspective, dealing with this idea of volumetric drawing. So I'm going to think of it that way, thinking it's a little bigger in the front than it is in the back. So I'm going to think of this as my high point of the shoe. And so if I think of that high point roughly here, is what I've got to do now is begin to make a curve going to my high point. So I'm going to run this curve to my high point, and now I'm going to bring this down this way, and I'm going to imagine this curve, the side of the shoe, has got to now follow the angle of the box, okay? Guys, follow me? So this is, even though it's a curve, it's running over the top of the shoe, coming down the side. Now I'm following the edge of the box going this way. So you come up with your first line, as I'm using as my first line. This goes down, so the tip of the shoe isn't at the top of the box. It's somewhere down here. And so I'm going to try to get a sense of where that might be. So this is my high point. And now I'm going to bring it down the way that I'm seeing it. And it's coming down, and then it straightens out a little bit. So it's doing this. And now the tip of the shoe is about there. So I'm going to watch the end of it. So the tip of the shoe, it's a certain plane there. Now this plane, well, what I'm going to do is, I think I'm going to come back here and, well, let's do this first. So I'm going to watch the width of the shoe, and it's kind of like a curved triangle, so it gets wide on this side. So I have to now begin to think about, how does this go? So if this is doing this, this is doing this. This has now got to get a little wider. I'm going to watch the planes. So it's going to get a little wider like this. It's going to turn in like this. And then as it goes to the bottom, it's got to follow this angle. So this is going to come around. It's going to move to my widest point and over. So around, and this is going to run back over. So this angle here is following this angle. This angle is coming to my widest point, coming this way. Okay. The back of the shoe, I'm going to start it, I think about as low as this, and I'm going to watch this angle following back, and it's going to curve to the back of the shoe this way, and then it's going to come to the angle of the side of the shoe, and then I'm going to bring it down for the bottom. This is going to come across so far. And now I'm going to watch where the heel is. This heel would angle through the shoe. So if I'm taking it this way, and now I'm going to take it through the shoe, I imagine going this way. Again, this is what's nice about using a volume to get these things. It'll tell you its angle, so it's going that way. This part of the shoe then begins to move up. We're going to see a little bit of it, and then our curve is going to come down and begin to flow this way. I'm going to straighten this up a little more, make it just a little neater in the front. I got the thickness of the box probably a little too big, but we'll keep it the way we've got it here. And then we'll do that with it. I'm going to lighten this line up because it hit the edge of the shoe. And I just kind of want you to see what's going to happen in there. So this piece has got to ride along that side. And then it makes the curve for the back of the shoe. Okay. There's a little bit of a thickness to this shoe, so I'm going to watch the inside piece. Now, is what you're going to do, I'm going to lighten this up. I'm going to make this just a little better. It's a little thick there, so I'm going to get rid of this. I'm going to angle it in just a little more. So I'm going to go to my high point and move it around. Now, is what you're going to watch is the center. Center is here. And it's going to make a turn. To here. We're going to watch the plane break here. I'm going to put a curve to this. So I'm going to get rid of my straight line, my little construction line there. There's actually a curve, so we're going to bring it up as a curve. And I don't know how visible that's going to be. Okay. Anyways, our plane is going to connect. So now, after you get it drawn out, you're going to look for the plane breaks. So this is one here. This is going to be another one here. Watch the angle of the box. This angle goes this way. This is this way. This is this way. So then when you begin to put in some cross contours, let it follow the angle that you're stroking, as it begins to work its way through. Let it get darker as it goes down. Okay, so you start to get the curve of it. The top part, I'm going to neaten this up very little bit here so you can see it. Our top part now, our plane break is going to be here. Top plane break is there. I'm going to watch the side of it here. And now we're going to take these lines and bring them over. Watch the curve. And it's going to show us the top plane. So you want to try to get the sense for that curve and how it's going to move around. Here it's a little straighter. Comes through. It's going to hit out and begin to make its curve coming this way. I'm going to develop those up there just a little more. Okay. So you're going to do the same with yours. Watch the plane break on the thickness of the wood, and then the inside. I'm going to use the directional line of going vertical. What I'm going to do is do it this way. As it gets to the corner, this is the angle of the box is going this way, so now we're going to make our turn going this way. It's a curved surface, even though it's on a plane as a back, so develop that angle a little bit. So you can start to get a little bit of the dimension of the form that you're drawing. Keep checking things, making sure they're accurate, and this will curve through. Okay. All right, so we're going to leave the shoe like this. Now we're going to take a different object. So mostly with this, because the next object I do is going to be done in a cylinder, because you can do these things in any kind of shape you so desire, whatever works the best. So again, just to go over this before I go into the next object, the box originally that was there, I got rid of some of the lines, but you can still see it a little bit. I'm just going to go back and put it in just so that you can see it within that form. So again, just to go through this before I go into something else, because I'm not going to spend as much time on the next one. This angle, even though it's a curve, is following the angle of the box this way. The toe follows this angle. So depending on if I had it turned different, it would follow the plane according to how it would go. So even though the shoe is built on curves, this still has an angle to the top, which is following this. My high point, it would touch the box. This is much lower. The back of the leg, or the back of the heel, is going this way, follows the plane of the back of the box. And again, these lines are following this, even though they're going up and down. Make sure you use some cross contour lines on it. Okay. For the next one, is what I'm going to do is I'm going to be working from this little sculpture. So I'm not going to use a lot of detail in it, is what I want you to do is get the basic forms of it if you decide to use a figurine. But I wanted to do it because this, rather than based on a box, I can base it on a curve, so on a cylinder. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start as if I'm looking down on it very little. So if I'm looking down on it a little, there's a top plane to it like this, right? And then I'm looking down at the cylinder. So if I look at my width of the object, the shoulders are the widest, the base is narrower, but I'm going to put it in one simplistic cylinder. So I'm going to start it like this. I'll get out of your way. So we're going to start it as a cylinder. I'm going to watch roughly the height. So I'm making the bottom of the cylinder, as all of you know, the ellipse, wider, because we're looking down on it more. So anyways, we start off with a simple cylinder. It's our basic shape. When we look at this, since I'm looking further down on the bottom than I am at the top, this distance is a little narrower than this distance. Okay, if all of you remember back. Now, so what I want to do within this cylinder is we're going to have to watch a little bit of the relationships. So I'm going to take this to the top. I'm going to measure that from the bottom, and we can see the head is a little bit shorter than the bottom part. So I'm going to kind of come up with an idea of where that point is, and then I'm going to measure it. So I'm going to say the chin roughly here. And then I'm going to measure and say from there to there, is it shorter? And it's a little bit shorter. So I'm going to say that's a pretty close measurement for the head. I'm going to be safe, I'm going to err on being a little bit higher. Okay, so I'm going to say here. So if I say the chin is there, when I look at it, I see a tilt to this head, and I'm going to do it at an angle like this. So it's going to be turned in space. So I'm trying to hold it the way you would see it. This head just about hits the edge of that from the perspective that I'm in. So I have to consider that. This is turning in, so I have to consider that. So I know the head's going to be about down to here. So then I'm going to take a shape, and I'm going to almost touch the edge, and I'm going to then bring it in for its chin. So I'm going to bring it around and bring it over. I'm going to say the chin is about there. It's close. So you're going to, again, these are going to be close estimates, not perfect. And then this side of the head is going to come back. I'm going to think about the hairline. Now there's two things happening here. There's a tilt going this way. So the front of the head is turning this way. Okay. And I'm going to bring this over just a touch more. So the turn of the head is going that way, but at the same time, the hairline tilts up this way. Now I've got my ellipse this way because we're looking down on the cylinder. So what I've got to do is turn that hairline going this way. So I've got to bring this up and say that angle and that angle are going to be close to the same. I'm going to watch this angle from the hairline going to the front of the ear and try to determine these distances. So I'm going to take it like this. And that's representing coming down to here. Now the jaw in front of the ear, I'm going to take a look at that and say, what is that doing? And so I'm going to take an angle like this, and then the jaw moving this way. So now I've got a little bit of a tilt to the head. And if any of you have ever done faces, one way we construct them is going for this line of the hairline, which is automatically going to give me a little bit of the top of this, okay, that top plane. And then we begin to take it from there to the jaw, or at the top of the ear, and then we follow the angle of the jaw. In this case, it's got a slight angle to it doing this, and then over to the front. So that gives me a little bit of the feel of how these pieces go together. Now, with that in mind, I've got my center. I'm going to watch roughly the eyebrows, and they're going to come across this way, all the way around, which means the ear is going to be here on the side of the head. And then we're going to take this line of this material going over her head, and I want to kind of watch that. Eventually, these angles, keep watching the angles. This is doing this. This is coming back. I'm looking for this point, which is a wide point. I'm going to try to find where that is and then angle this in. Okay, so I'm just going to go after my general directions and lines. With this, eyebrows, I'm going to find the bottom of the nose at this angle, and I'm going to find the parting of the lips and angle them a little bit, and the lower lip. Okay. little bit of a curve. Okay, so we're going to keep this simple like this. And now I'm going to find this shoulder. So I needed to place the mouth because I'm looking down on it. And I wanted to figure out, mouth is a little low, but I'm going to leave it. I wanted to find the shoulder in light of the mouth. And so it's, for me, it's about here. And that shoulder is going to move out. And I'm going to come around. This side is coming up to about here. And we're going to bring it out and around. Following the curve, I have to imagine the curve of the cylinder. And this the front. So now we're going to look at this piece. So this piece, I've got it on a cylinder, but I'm watching where that's going to be. So this is coming around, over, around the curve, and then watching the curve of this to the shoulder this way. So you place that piece in there. The top of the head, just to complete it, is going to come around this way. And then ultimately, this angle will be in. And we'll put that curve in. So, now we've got the top part of the body, and we're looking at this angle, and I want to make sure I've got it facing in the right direction. It's close, but I do want to curve it a little bit more this way. Okay. Now, the other thing that I would want to watch with these proportions is I'd want to watch from the bottom of the base to this chest, and when it comes up, it's just underneath the chin, and I want to watch and see what this does. And so it's telling me that I can make it a little bit bigger, and so that's what I'm going to do. And so you want to check your proportions periodically, that's for sure. And then this, I'm going to put this little break in it for the chest, and I'm going to bring it down just a little bit more. So from that, now I'm going to take the material, the center, this is her chin, now the center of her chest is really here, and the material that's there is going to be over here. The little bow, if I look at it from my angle, again it's off to the right or the left of the mouth. So we want to watch where that is. And then this piece is going to move over this way. And I'm going to neaten this up ever so slightly. Now, we're going to find the cylinder. The cylinder is going to work itself through about right here. And on the other side, where my hand is, about here. Bring them all the way down. And then is what we're going to find is we're looking down on the ellipse. So there'd be an ellipse in here. For the decoration that's there. And then as it comes down, put in the other ellipse. And then the base ends up being smaller than I've got it, because that was the width. We simplified it. We brought down our edge of our shoulder, but the base is narrower. So now we want to find how narrow is it. So I'm going to do that with it. What I'm going to do is rub this out. So we're going to narrow the base. Now I made it just a little smaller than it originally was, because ultimately that's what happened with it. So is what happens if I measure this, it should go to her chin, which is about right. So watch your measurements. I'm going to put just a few, I'm going to darken that a little bit. I'm going to put a few cross contour lines on here, and then I'm going to leave this one. Okay, so with our cross contours, I'm going to get rid of some of the lines that are there. I'm going to take this shoulder. I'm now going to divide the chest from the shoulder. Okay, so our top plane, let's take them around this way. So the forehead's going to roll this way. Top of the head, I'm going to leave out this little bow. And I'm just going to put the curves for the top of the head, for the cross contours. These are going to go up. The hair kind of comes out. I'm going to use them this way, and they wrap back, so it's going around in this sense. I'm going to get it just a little darker at the top part to turn it in. Across the cheeks, eventually they're going to roll up. Oops. Hold on. Got to fix this charcoal. I think I'm just going to go to my hand. So is what we're going to do is watch these curves. So this is coming up and around. Cheek doing the same. It would come this way. It would hit the plane break and roll over. And these would start to build up. Underneath the curve of the face, this would tuck in. These would roll out. And there's a top plane. And there's a front plane. And as these come out, they would come out this way. And of course, there's a cylinder here. So watch the angles. Try not to use horizontal lines if possible. Okay, I'm going to leave it like that because those lines just build and build and build, and it can start to look like a lot of lines out there. So, again, you can start them off as a box shape. They can start off as a cylinder as a base. This works kind of like notional space, but now it's in the 3-dimension rather than 2-dimension. And work a little bit with the model lines. And there's one other quick little layout I'm going to show you, and then you guys will begin to work on your own. What I'm going to do is get rid of this one I just put up there. And we're going to take a look at these two together. Now, this one I'm going to put on an angle as well. So I'm going to start with a 2-point perspective corner, similar to the shoe, and come up with a side. Hold on. So we're going to come up with a side plane. Hold on, everybody. The charcoal is not working right. So you always want to construct with a box or a cylinder. Sometimes on some objects, we even use a sphere depending on the object. So anyways, we're going to start like this, And I'm going to look at these guys converging back this way. And I'm going to use that. So probably about okay, so there's my shape. Now, we can watch the sides. I can say, what's this, how wide is this to this? So I'm trying to keep this definitely a little narrower than this side. I'm thinking it's still a little wide, so what I'm going to do is bring it in just a shade. So you want to get them close to what the measurements might be. I think that looks better. So with that in mind, I'm going to lightly imagine through it, very lightly. You might see this. Okay, so I'm just doing it very light just to try to imagine the transparency of that shape. Now I've got two characters here, so I'm going to divide this where their heads are going to be. I'm going to take this one. I've got to watch my top planes, and the other head's going to go in here. So I've got two lines up there because there's a little space between their heads. Her head has a top, and then I have to watch the low point of the bonnet she's wearing. I'm going to estimate that somewhere about here. So I'm going to run over a top plane like this, and her head's going down, say like this. And this one's top plane is doing this of her head. And I'm going to run down where the top is like this. So that's the top plane of her head. You might see a little highlight there, I don't know, but there's a plane break where my finger sits on top. On volumetric drawing, you've got to look for plane breaks. On the shoe, it's easy because the plane break is definitely clear. Here, you got to say there's a top to it, the side somewhere, and so there's where I made my line for the top and the side. Her face now is looking up, so there's an angle going like this. So is what I'm watching now is off of this top plane. I'm going to watch the angle of her face doing this. And it's going to come around, like say to about there. And then I'm going to put on that angle, and then the front of her face, where the two faces are going to meet, are going to be about there. And this is going to be the jaw coming underneath. So I'm just following the jawline, and then I'm going to connect these 2 points. So I get a shape like that, which is representing her head. So I'm coming around with the whole general shape, okay? So we're trying to get a sense for top, side, and front. Now, the challenging thing about this one is the other guy that's here. There's an angle to his head, to his face. You might be able to see it there. And it's going to meet roughly her nose. And so I have to find out where that is. So that angle is going to go in there. And that's going to go to then the top of his head, which is going to angle back very much like I did her head, to like this. So I'm coming up with a top plane. And then I'm going to come up with the back of his head here. And it's angling this way. And then it's going to come down. And it's going to wrap around too, because their faces are coming together here at this vertical line. And then it's going to wrap around this way. So there's my two shapes. Now, this guy has a front to his face. If there's a front, there's a side. So I have to figure out where that is. So it just looks like a little block. So this is a clue. This stops, this starts, this is the top plane. So that edge is there. So I'm going to say it's right there. And it does that. And then the cheekbone pulls around like this, so I'm going to use that coming to the chin. So I'm going to use that as my front of the block. So I'm just going to keep this as a block. So this is the front of his face going in that direction. And so now we've got a top to her head, and we've got a side, and we've got a top. Okay. These characters are wearing a little hat. So again, to find that, I have to say, where's the edge of this hat? And it's wrapping over her head. So it's going over her head. So feel it going over there, and then moving around again this way, and then it pulls up. So I'm bringing it around over the side of the head and through. The eye, if there were one, it would angle back this way, and there'd be a nose, but it's too small to place in, so I'm not going to put it in there. So then is what I'm going to do is find, this is the angle of her jaw, then her neck starts to move in this direction, this way. So the neck's, she's looking up, so the neck is doing this. His jaw is here, and so the neck is coming in this direction. The neck is doing this. Now her arm comes forward like this and around. So I got to watch the front of this box. Now, her arm in the back, I look at it where it starts in light of the back of this bonnet. And so I'm going to say for where I'm at, it starts about here. And then the angle of the arm goes this way. And then I'm estimating how far that way. So then there's a curve to her arm coming back this way. It hits this plane break, So I've got to watch where that plane break is. So this is going back. There's a little angle to it. Hits that plane break and goes this way. So we're watching our angles. This is this way, this is this way. The center of her back is about here. This is the center. And so separating the back, her back from the arm, there's an angle here. And then above the arms, there's a curve to her back. I got to make sure that curve follows this angle. Okay? And that's what's nice about drawing in these forms, because they get you to think about where those placements are. This is the arm on this side of the plane. This is the arm on this side of the plane. So the curve of her shoulder is here. The arm is here, and it pulls back and goes this way. There's a plane break on her shoulder here. Eventually, well, I'll do it now. I'm going to model that just so that you can see what it's doing. I'm going to put a curve to it so you can see it curving over. Now, this is the top part of her body. Now I've got to get this guy in here. So his neck is coming out this way. The front of his body comes forward because he's moving forward, and it wraps around like this. And then we're going to get where the back of his neck is. His ear would be about here. Because his head's looking up. And so the back of his head is way over here. And his arm's going to pull back quite a ways. I would say, I'm going to measure it. It's coming out just beyond the head. So his arm's going to pull way out like this and around. And then this arm is this way. And it tucks in. The collar on his neck is here. And it pulls this way to the front of his body, going this way. The triangle on the other side. This is the front of his stomach, this angle. Now, his backside sticks out the furthest, and that's going to come out like this. And then her dress is going to start to pull out. It's probably about right here. And the back side of her dress comes out here. I'm going to watch the planes. One angle. I've had you guys drawing with angle lines. Now they're going to become important. One angle, two angle. And the back of the skirt has got to follow this angle. So the back of the skirt's following that angle. And then it makes its turn and tips down a little bit like that. The center line, center line, center line comes this way. Hits this plane break. And then on this side, it's coming this way. She's got an apron, and it comes out, and it wraps around and follows this angle. Okay, watch. Follow the angles of the perspective of how it's supposed to be according to the cube you're drawing it in. Okay. So anyways, that's going to do that. This comes down maybe a little bit more. Now, the front of his body. So this is the front curving into his stomach. I'm going to curve it just a little more. We're almost got this. Only take a couple more minutes. So this is moving in, and now the front of his body bends this way. And the center of his body is here. The division of the legs is here. Okay. His foot is going to be here. And it's going to straighten up like this. And then the side of it is going to be parallel. The front of the top of the feet. So again, this box goes back this way, right? So the top of his feet, then you can know, I'm just watching where they are in light of her dress. The top of their feet have got to be at this angle. Okay, it's got to be at the angle of the depth line, which this is, the depth line. So it's got to do that. So that's going that way. The top of the shoe might make a little curve like this. The side of the shoe is here. And it's got to follow this line. And then the tip of the shoe, I got to get her leg in here. So her leg is going to go about here. And it's going to come this way. This is the plane break for the leg. It's on the plane edge. This has got to follow, if I get the perspective right, it's got to follow my box. So in other words, this angle has got to be that angle, or otherwise it's going to look bad. I'm going to bring the foot up just a touch. So it's going to follow that angle. The side of the shoe is going to be here. The back of the leg is going to be here. The angle, this angle has got to be this angle. The back of her shoe has got to follow that angle of the bottom. And then the top of the shoe. So it's going to come back this way, square it off, and then bring down the front of the shoe. And of course his feet. Come on. Tips of the shoes. The vision of them. Okay. Now the last leg here. We're going to take this one. This one comes out further. Comes all the way down to here. Back of it follows the parallel of the box. The side of it, the other side. So all these lines are all connecting. This one connects to that. That one's parallel to that. And then that'll go in there. Okay. So I'm going to find that plane break in the front of his leg. There's a little, for me, there's a little shadow edge there. So I'm going to finish this up by kind of showing you some of the forms, the planes, in light of hatching lines. So this form, as a general, would go this way. Why does it go that way? There's some curves there because it's following the angle of the box. Okay. There's a plane break about here. And so this leg has a little bit of a curve to it, and it wraps back this way. So it's doing this. Watch those plane breaks. Top of the shoes, I'm just going to put a little curve to them. Side, of course, doing what the side will do. Tops of the heads, following across. Now I'm going to follow the curve of the bonnet she's wearing. And there's a slight underplane that goes this way. Top of his head, stroke the lines in the direction of the plane. And then this is going to curve around. There's a plane break. You see highlights. I see a little highlight here, so it tells me it's curving under. If it curves under, that means my line's got a curve on the outer edge. So I'm going to change it and make it turn. And so I'm going to hatch these. Remember, with this sort of modeling, where it gets darker, build your lines, let it get darker. The front plane of the face, I'm just going to darken it just so that you can see it as a block shape. The top, I'm going to make this a little darker so you can see it go back in light of the front. So there's a little bit of definition. The back of her back, I'm going to put in the plane hatching, curve it, bring it in. The arms curve out this way. These curve this way. So take your time trying to get the sense of how these things curve. The edge of her sleeve, I'm going to darken it in light of the curved lines I'm putting on for the modeling technique. And then this will curve. Last thing I'm going to do is on his chest, we're going to piece in this angle so we can get the sense of his front of his body turning in and wrapping around his arms. The arm is going to go way out and way around. And so keep the lines closest to you lighter, the ones further darker. Okay. Again, watch the curve. How far does it curve back? I know some of you are having a hard time with these curved lines, trying to get the planes. Okay, I'm going to leave these characters like this. I think you get the idea. So when you turn this off, you're going to find a few objects of your own. I think in the description I have about 5 of them. Again, you can use some curved objects, you can use some angled objects, and have fun with them. See you soon.